You're watching Liquid Lunch. It's a Money Monday, and on Money Monday, we bring on the money guests. A little earlier in the show, we mixed it up and we talked about the field for the Democratic primaries rapidly approaching. First one coming up first week in February there in Iowa, and then on to New Hampshire. And we talked about the lean so far to the left that many of these young millennials are getting behind Bernie and they're supporting a socialist. And it is refreshing to see some young people who are against socialism. And joining us right now is Morgan Zegers. She's the CEO and founder of Young Americans Against Socialism. And it is nice to see some younger people out there fighting for our president than against him. What's happening?
Well, unfortunately, 58%, according to Gallup, of people my age would now choose socialism over capitalism for the future of the country. And so my organization, we try to educate my generation using videos of people who have lived through socialism to really show them what it's like.
So give me an example of some of the things you got. You're a nonprofit, right? The Young Americans Against Socialism. What are some of the things you do? You're not trying to like brainwash people or totally turn them the other way, but you're trying to at least advocate and create awareness about how bad socialism is. What do you do? How do you accomplish that goal?
Well, the issue is, the equation is that, first of all, my generation was failed in the classroom. We are very ignorant on the issues of socialism, on the failures of socialism. And on top of that, we have really good intentions. And so we really want to help people. And the combination of those two factors really puts us in a place to be taken advantage of by people like the far left, Bernie Sanders, AOC, the Squad, Justice Democrats, Democratic Socialists of America. They are taking advantage of the fact that my generation doesn't understand socialism, and they're lying to us by saying that if we scrap capitalism, we'll end up like Nordic Europe. And so what we really focus on is making sure my generation understands Nordic Europe relies on capitalism to pay for their large government programs, and they have high taxes. That is different from the socialism that Bernie Sanders is advocating for when he says he wants to have major government control of the economy.
Morgan, when we look at where young people are today, part of the reason I think socialism is so appealing to them, and I'm curious if you agree, it's not only because they've been brainwashed by academia, although I'm sure that's a part of it, but it's because, you know, for generations, people have played by the rules and things have worked out pretty well for them. These days, if you're a young person, you go to college, you do what you're supposed to do, you try and get good grades, and even if you get a job after you graduate, essentially your reward is mountains and mountains of debt and not being able to afford to live in a city like New York or San Francisco or Los Angeles unless you have super wealthy parents that are willing to subsidize you. Do you think that part of the reason socialism is such an appealing alternative to young folks is because they see that the current system isn't working for them?
I could say a lot about that right now, but an important thing to look throughout socialist movements in history, there's always the need to create the desire for wealth redistribution in our country, or in previous countries, and now they're doing it in the United States using the student loan crisis. And what's interesting is you have Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren saying, how about if you vote for me, I will just take the money from the evil rich people on Wall Street, from the people who have more money than you. It's not fair. And so give me power, and I will use government force to take what they have and give it to you to cancel your student loans. We have a lot of serious problems in this country, and the fact that the far left is saying, we'll just pay off all of your student debt, we'll pay off all your medical debt, we'll pay for all of your college, we'll get free health care for all, et cetera, et cetera. These radical proposals take away from the real conversations that we need to be having to solve the actual problem of student loan crisis or protecting our environment or finding affordable health care. And I hope we can get back to the topics, but again, also impeachment is taking away from that conversation as well.
Do your folks in your organization believe what I think is this left-wing fallacy that the number one most important thing to Democratic voters is climate change?
Well, that's another important factor of socialist movements throughout history. They have to create fear and urgency. And yes, there are problems, and I would love as a capitalist to find innovative solutions to be better for our planet and to find less ways for us to use single-use plastics, et cetera. We have a lot of really great options, whether that's carbon offsetting or carbon capture technology or nuclear energy. But when the left says we're going to die in 12 years if we don't pass the Green New Deal that AOC's chief of staff admitted started as an economic switch up for our economy, changing us from capitalist to socialist, and then later on they slapped the sticker on it for climate change, it's very concerning because they're creating that sense of fear and urgency, and the bad Republicans and conservatives who don't support the Green New Deal need to step up or they want you to die.
I already debunked the rising sea level. I did a little science project right here on the show. I've been covering this inside and out. the founder of the Weather Channel said a few years ago that it's a complete fallacy that there's climate change. And we just cited an Oxford doctorate who wrote a report who said that the reason that it seems like there are these cyclical changes in weather from hot to cold, they're like million-year cycles when the Earth's axis and the sun are a little further and closer, and that's what causes it. Has nothing whatsoever to do with how many cans of hairspray I have to use to get my hair like this, or the fluorocarbons included in them. Nothing to do with humans at all.
And another important point, in the last 100 years, the number of people who have died from natural disasters or extreme weather has reduced by 90%. 90% the number has gone down. And so when you have Greta Thunberg and when you have AOC telling us we're going to die if we don't pass their socialist agenda, it's very concerning. And I think their motives are incredibly concerning for the future of the country.
As a younger person, what do you think is appealing? Like, is it Bernie Sanders and AOC and the squad going out there and saying, free college, free healthcare, eliminate student loans? Is it the free society? Because I think, I have two daughters, Victoria and Ava, 21 and 18. My son's 14. I've tried to provide a life for them that was a little better than I had. So I think our kids these days are a little more spoiled. And they sitting there like, hey, I want everything free. I don't want to have to work for it. Is that a problem here?
It is. And in The Road to Serfdom, Hayek talks about how socialists always have to change the meanings of words that we've always used. So what does it mean to be moral, fair, equal, and free? And Bernie Sanders even posted a campaign video where he says, what is freedom? And then he has a bunch of kids on the screen talking, am I free if I have student loan debt? Am I free if I have high healthcare costs? Am I free if I only work my dead-end job to get health care insurance? And instead of saying, yes, you are free to do anything you want in the United States, and there are responsibilities, and responsibility sucks sometimes, the video ends with saying, you're not free. Because freedom comes with economic freedom, and freedom comes from Medicare for All, and the Green New Deal, and student loan cancellation. They are changing what freedom means, so that freedom isn't responsibility, or freedom isn't the freedom to live your own life and not be oppressed by a government. Freedom is now the freedom from responsibility.
So Morgan, putting aside the Medicare for All issue, student loan cancellation, isn't there a kernel of truth to that, though, when we see young people burdened by crippling levels of debt at putting off things like buying a home and starting a family? Doesn't that put America's future in a less than a desirable place?
And I'm disappointed that it's taken conservatives so long to provide, or really just show that they care about this issue, or show that they want to fix it, or provide any realistic solutions. And
well,
I think
it's so interesting. There was one Daily Caller piece by Tucker Carlson and Neil Patel in which they proposed going after the very people that are benefiting from the financial largesse of these college students' parents, and that's the university presidents with their multi-million-dollar salaries. Now, every other nonprofit in the world has to pay down 5% of their endowment each year. Coincidentally, the only exception is to the universities. Why not make the universities be bound by the same rules that every other nonprofit in the country is bound by?
Yeah, well, the conversation needs to be focused on how much college costs, not who is paying for college, and that's what the left has really taken the conversation away from. So I hope we can focus on going after that and the high school guidance counseling system, which is forcing students through this funnel that feels like it makes them feel like they have to go to a 4-year liberal arts degree or college, and it's not that way.
From an economic standpoint, I think the universities saw maybe 8 or 10 years ago in 2008, 2009, when we were going through this financial crisis, that the government was going to continue to give unsecured loans for $200,000 to kids that have never held a job. So the universities did what any good capitalist would do. If the government's going to pay, let's raise the prices.
Yeah.
So it was really a factor of bad democratic policies when they were just forcing banks to give loans to everyone. Who would give a young kid who's never had a job a $200,000 money it costs for most of these colleges and divide it by a good job making like $100,000 a year to start, which is almost unheard of? You really can't. You can almost, after taxes, not pay back your student loan over life.
Well, and you mentioned a good problem there. where this is all about messaging, and it's a lot sexier to say, I'm going to pay off your student loans and I'm going to pay for all of your college for all the generations to come, free college for all. It's a lot better to say that than to say, let's really look into all of the college presidents and let's really hold them accountable and let's look into government loans that we've been giving out. It's just not a good conversation to have.
All right. I want to thank you very much for joining us for Liquid Lunch. You were fantastic. We try to give you all perspectives, Democrats, Republicans, those who are against socialism, like me, myself, and Morgan Zegers has a great youthful perspective, and she's doing great things to fight against this scourge on our society they call socialism, which has never, ever succeeded anywhere in history. But we will forge on through hour 2 right after this. We're going to come back with Corey Stern. He is the lead counsel in the Flint, Michigan water case. We'll get his legal insights on that and many other things. We'll take a quick break and more Liquid Lunch for you coming back right after this.